I'm live. Didn't even realize it. That's groovy. Hello, boys and girls. It is the 30th of November 2016. I'm in freezing cold northwest of England at the moment. Very, very cold day. And today we're going to be talking about processing emotions effectively. And we're also going to start to talk about our New Year's resolutions. For the sake of the technical side of things, I'm just going to check that I am talking about processing emotions effectively. There's my dumb voice coming out twice. Okay, so we can get straight into this. There's a bunch of questions that have already come through. I will get around to reading some of these out. One of the first things I would like to address, though, is a comment that came through on Facebook, which is a very, very telling comment, which is it typifies the type of thing that I'm talking about. So LL on the Richard Grannon Spartan Life Coach Facebook page, which if you haven't joined, I suggest you go and join now, said, life is a lot different when you learn that you have extreme feelings that other people don't feel. Processing emotions, question mark, question mark. I'm still trying to limit what I feel. Okay, so I had a conversation with a mate the other night, and then I spoke to a couple of clients about this, and it's a recurring theme that needs to be addressed. Your emotions, if you're suffering from complex post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of being raised in what is very gently and civilly called adverse childhood environments, or a shit show, as the rest of us would call it, you begin to develop over time, as you become educated in the subject, an appreciation for the fact that you don't feel what normal people feel. In the literature, normal people, neurotypicals, are called neurotypicals. What we usually fail to appreciate is that our baseline of emotion is not the same baseline of emotion that neurotypicals have. Neurotypicals who weren't raised in adverse childhood environments, who didn't experience emotional dysregulation and dysregulation of the Hpa axis by being exposed to extreme levels of rage, extreme levels of boundary breaking abuse, sexual abuse, alcoholism, drug abuse, and generally a chaotic and an emotionally disturbing environment. Those of us who did experience that, those of us who were raised in the adverse childhood environment and now have CPTSD, our baseline for emotions is not the same for people who weren't. This is why people with CPTSD can feel bewildered when they look at other people and they're like, how are they doing what it is that they do? How is it that they can get on with their life and everything seems to be okay and I can't? And we tend to project our experience outward and start to feel, well, everybody must feel this way. Well, actually, they don't. I had my first realization of this when I was in my early teens, when I realized that I had an issue that I was calling at the time social anxiety. I was extremely anxious in certain social situations, and it was disproportionate to whatever was going on. I've told this story many times, that like I couldn't walk into a shop and speak to the shopkeeper, the shop owner, and buy something without breaking out in a sweat, my voice trembling, and generally finding the experience quite hard. As I progressed through university, I noticed that other students could get themselves to university, go to 5 lectures back to back, be surrounded by people, speak to other people, learn, speak to their friends, go home and feel absolutely fine. I found that exhausting. I personally found that very, very, very tiring. It was the story I was telling myself at the time was that it was psychically draining. I was taking on too much psychic energy because I was a bit more woo when I was a teenager. That was the closest narrative and the most accurate narrative that I had at the time to explain it. And I found the experience of being around people exhausting, and other people didn't. And this is where I started to absorb the idea that I was different, that I was an empath, that I had a different or a highly sensitive person, as I later found out other people were calling it. We don't tend to realize how off the norm our baseline experience of emotion is. The goldfish in the goldfish bowl doesn't know that it's swimming in water. In the same way, we don't know that we're experiencing anxiety and depression and rage at higher pitches than the people around us are, because we've always swum in that water. We've never not been in that water, so we have no way of contrasting it. We have no way of not knowing that it's there. When children are raised in environments that are abusive and frightening and chaotic, and that provoke a lot of, one of my major concerns has always been huge amounts of adrenaline. I don't think it is very good for children to be exposed to experience that induce huge amounts of adrenaline over and over and over again in their childhood. That is likely to cause a biological effect, a damaging biological effect that we call dysregulation of the Hpa axis, which basically means the way the cybernetic system of the brain and the hormonal system and the central nervous system is communicating with itself and processing the external world starts to break down. The hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the adrenal glands are now not talking to each other in a way that is effective and appropriate. They're now sometimes overfiring and sometimes they're underfiring. So, when we talk about getting an adrenaline dump in a scenario of intense threat, strictly speaking, according to our scientific friends, that's not strictly true. It's not just adrenaline. It's a whole cocktail of things that are coming out of you. But let's just call it adrenaline for the sake of ease, of functionality. You're now not experiencing the appropriate amounts of adrenaline in certain situations, so you will under-respond to threat or you will over-respond to threat. This can be really bad. You might think under-responding to threat is no big deal. Under-responding to threat, though, this is there's a pet theory. There's no research to this. I think people who learn through CPTSD and adverse childhood conditions to under-respond to threat, to just keep themselves very calm even when there's a high degree of threat there, are going to have a higher predisposition to depression because they're constantly suppressing emotions, a higher predisposition to anger management issues because the effective sort of mediation of threat is through the healthy expression of anger. The healthy expression of anger is assertiveness. The unhealthy expression of anger is violence. Violence could be physical or it could be emotional. It's an over response, an overreactive response. The other thing I think that happens, right, and this is me now, that's mainstream research, this is me. I think that it actually suppresses your ability to experience excitement, and it suppresses your ability to experience joy. So I'm quite, I've noticed, quite flat in my affect, as it's called in psychology. Affect in psychology is emotion, the processing and expression of emotion. And I've noticed over the years, I don't seem to get as excited as other people do. Well, that's a natural side effect of constantly suppressing. I've also noticed that people who do that, just like me, tend to overeat and they move less. And that then causes weight gain because you're constantly suppressing excitement, suppressing emotion, suppressing the flight response. You don't want to flight, so you never want to run. So you never want to do your cardio in the gym because you never want to run. You want to either stay and fawn and negotiate, or stay and fight, or just stay and dissociate and freeze out and be like, yeah, sure, attack me. I'm not even here to be attacked right now. I think my personal opinion is that it starts to lead to eating more to suppress the anxiety because it works. The reason why people overeat is the same reason why they take cocaine or get addicted to pornography or gambling, is because it works. If it didn't work, people wouldn't do it anymore. So when you get that, you overeat, you numb out, you anesthetize with food, and at the same time as eating too many calories, you're moving less. Because I've noticed people who are a bit more hyper around me who do get excited, they're constantly talking and moving, and even the blinking of the eyes is burning calories. Even the movement of the fingers is burning calories. And these more excited people, that can spill over into anxiety issues. It can spill over into obsessive compulsive issues. It can spill over into like an ADHD way of relating to reality. So it's not better or worse. It's functional or non-functional, and it ends up with a result. I've noticed people who are more adrenophiles, they're constantly up and out and they're constantly talking, shouting. Their volume is higher than other people. Their pitch is higher than the people around. They speak really, really quickly all the time. I only do that during these videos. The rest of the time I sit like this. I'm completely still. I don't move. I don't talk. I don't smile. I hate joy. Joy is Western decadence and weakness. Now, I'm much more still. And the reason I talk fast during these videos is because I modeled those people when I was in my 20s so that I could be a better a better public speaker and trainer, because I noticed it was more compelling to listen to people who were talking like that. The end result of this can be an excessive weight gain. And I'm going to come back to the weight gain and the eating issue and New Year's resolutions in a moment. So what LL on Facebook has pointed out is a very common way of approaching this issue of a lack of emotional processing. Stand by, let me just check that everybody can hear me. Are there any comments saying we can't hear you? Or comments below? Somebody said, I love you, man. I love you too, man. There's nothing but love. We're just infinite consciousness interacting with each other. It's all fractal. It's all psychedelic. It's just love, man. Okay. Yeah, people can hear me. Okay, that's good. If you can hear me, just right. We can hear you, you divvy. So what LL has pointed out is a very common response. So let's look at it like this. Don't think of yourself as yourself. Imagine that you're the psychologist. I'm a psychologist. You're a psychologist. And we're talking about a client that we have. This client was raised in an environment that was chaotic and upsetting. And I want you to picture the client now, not as an adult, but as she's 4 years old. She's raised in this environment. There's just the people around her are emotionally dysregulated. Their communication never matches their behaviors. They're up, they're down, they're in, they're out. Sometimes they're attentive, sometimes they're abusive, sometimes they want to pour guilt and shame on the child. And she's getting all of these conflicting messages. And eventually she learns that if she wants to survive and not go completely crazy, she has to start shutting the communication out. And she has to start slowing those feelings down to survive. I can't listen to everything that's being said. I can't take on board all of the messages in this environment, and I can't feel all of these feelings. We are learning machines. Everything that we do becomes a skill. This is one of the beautiful perspectives of neuro-linguistic programming. Like if you're gaining weight all the time, neuro-linguistic programming at its best, in its purest form, has no moral judgment to that. They have just complete curiosity. They would just say, well, that's interesting. How do you do that? If you go to a neuro-linguistic program, say, I'm depressed all the time, what we're trained to do is to say, that's interesting. How are you doing that? Let's treat it as a skill, because it is a skill. In NLP, it's called a strategy. You've learned a strategy and you're using it because it works, or past tense, worked. Now, if you apply a strategy that worked at one period of your life in the past, say in childhood, for example, but now as you've moved through time, my finger's bleeding. I don't know why that's happened. As you move, see, this is self-neglect. I'm ignoring my feelings right now. I'm bleeding and I don't even know it. As you move through time and you change and the environment changes and the needs that are placed upon you change, that old effective strategy, if it's not retrained out of you, it's a skill. You've developed a skill. It's not a mental health issue. It's not a disease. It's not a virus that hit you. It's a skill, and it works. So imagine this little 4-year-old girl. She learned to dissociate. She learned to numb out, and she learned to suppress her emotions in order to survive. What does that little 4-year-old girl look like at age 44? At age 44, you'll have somebody who struggles with weight gain, who is in and out of abusive relationships, who can only really form lasting, loving relationships if she's had children with her own children, because that's the only stable form of relationship where she has herself set the boundaries in it. But when it comes to relating to other adults and she's looking to get into a new relationship with whoever, a man or a woman, she can't do it. She's attracting only abusive relationships. Why? Everybody's like that. Yeah, tell us why. Tell us why. Why do we do that? Number one, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Take notes if you need to. You learn what love was in childhood. And if you learn that the way you love yourself is the way that is directly modeled by the way your primary caretakers, primary caregivers, your parents loved you. So if they loved you in a very unboundaried way, if they loved you in a way that was very much based on, I will only love you if, conditional, sorry, that was the adjective I was looking for, conditional way, then you can only love yourself in a conditional way. You can only accept yourself based on conditions. I have to look a certain way, I have to earn a certain amount of money, I have to be in a certain kind of relationship, I have to have a certain lifestyle, or else I can't love myself, or else I can't give myself permission to just feel good, which is the essence of what loving yourself is. It's just the moving from surviving to the thriving, to just feeling good, to just being in the moment and going, I'm okay, you're okay, the world's okay. It's not perfect, I'm not perfect, but it's all good, it's all okay. And you start to become comfortable with yourself. That's only really something that I've managed to get to in the last 6 months. It's been a major, major, major struggle. Not going to lie to you. That was one. I'm looking back at the hill I just climbed. I went, whew, if you're going to do that, you buckle up, grit your teeth, because it's not an easy ride, but it's possible. The point is, it's completely possible to get there. I know, because now I've gotten to that point, and it feels very different. This is something, if you've been following me closely, I've talked about elsewhere, where it didn't all come in one go. It was like a series of revelations, if you will, of kind of looking at the world, looking at people, and looking at myself and going, aha, this is how these parts fit together. This is what's happening. And this is me. This is me not loving myself. This is me not permitting myself to have needs or wants or drives. And this is me dragging myself from this state of codependency, of people pleaser syndrome, into personal sovereignty and self-centeredness, meaning that in the most neutral sense, self-governance, self-sovereignty, putting myself first before other people. What a drag. I mean, I really had to drag it across, and every day that I didn't look at it properly, it would go back and I'd pull it back and then it pulls back. Why is it doing this? Because of childhood, because of this is your hypnosis from childhood. This is childhood training where it goes straight into your unconscious. We're constantly learning, we're constantly developing skills, and you're never learning and developing skills more than when you're at your most open. I'll use this as the thumbnail for the video. The lotus, than when you're a child, from the ages of 0 to 8, which is why in Freudian psychoanalysis, the big revelation there was, let's focus on what happened between the ages of 0 to 8. Let's find out what this little entity learned love was, what love meant. So there's two things here. This is the first thing I told you, why the 44-year-old lady can't get into a happy relationship. Number one, your whole view of what love is broken. Now, I'm not talking about what you say consciously about love. We can all spout propaganda that we got from Oprah Winfrey about what, you know, a loving relationship looks like, and everybody can go, oh, I just believe it should all be equal and all be fair. Stop that. It's bullshit. It's nonsense. You want to believe it, and you think that if you keep saying that by the process of magic, it's going to come true. But in your heart, in your soul, and you know, to use the psychoanalytic language, in your unconscious, you don't believe that, and that's why you're manifesting these kinds of abusive relationships. It's exactly the same thing for men. It's exactly the same thing. Your parents' way of loving you as a child is the model you now have for how you love yourself. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is the way they interacted with each other, and that you observed with your big, wide open child's eyes that get smaller and smaller as you get older, and you're just like, I don't want to see it anymore. Cut it all off. But when you're a kid, they're like this, right? That's pretty scary. That's like a Clockwork Orange look. When you're as a child, you're looking at that and you're going, this is love. Not consciously, of course, you don't think that. You don't have the words for it because you don't have any boundaries internally or externally. You just look and you go, this is love, and you copy. Children do what adults do. They do not do what adults say. That was a parenting tip. Loads of people have asked me for parenting tips. I'm like, why are you going to get parenting tips from a guy who's got no kids? But that would help. That would help a lot. Just understand that. Children are going to do what you do, and they can't control it. It's completely unconscious more than what you say. What they say, what you say, they might do to stop you from whinging at them, stop you from nagging. But like I was dragging across here before, it's always going to go back to what they want to do. But they'll copy what you do at the deepest level. It's totally unconscious. You have the power to make them do what you do without ever telling them anything, as long as you do it first. And you can't fake it. You have to really do it. And then they're going to copy that. So your model for loving yourself is broken. Your model for what love is broken. You have to relearn how to love yourself, which means you've got to reparent yourself. You have to change I got this from somebody in a meetup in a group I ran in Amersham. And if you're watching that, guy, thanks very much, because it was a big revelation for me. He said he'd read this in a book. You have to, nobody's going to recover from CPTSD without changing their view of what love is. Nobody's going to recover from childhood trauma without completely altering their definition of what love is. And that takes a bit of work. You've got to actually look at that. The other factors that are going to be affecting you is that if you've learned to dissociate all the time, and if an abusive parent or parent is constantly telling you, don't feel what you feel because it's not convenient for me, filling you up with toxic shame and guilt and a sense of self-disgust, then when you get into an abusive relationship, because you're going to be attracted to abusive people, because, so this is your part number 3, you're trying to solve the puzzle of love from childhood. So if your father was an abandoner and you're a woman and you're attracted to men, you're going to go for emotionally distant men. Sometimes you'll also manifest men who are emotionally distant and they also have elements of your mother there. So if she was a typical narcissistic mother, displaying more of the borderline tendencies, lots of guilt, lots of shaming, lots of altering your perspective of who you are, lots of boundary breaking competition. That's not mother-daughter anymore. It's like two rival friends, you know, who's the prettiest, who's the sexiest here, that kind of thing. All of that damages your ability to just have boundaries inside of a relationship. So number 3 is you're going to be attracted to abusive relationships and go, yeah, this is comfy, this is what love is. And number 4 is you're going to dissociate when you're triggered into an emotional flashback. So if somebody's abusive to you in a relationship, it's real easy for them to be abusive to you, because every time they do it, you blank out, the eyes glaze over and you dissociate. And you start to go into what they call in neurolinguistic programming a transderivational search, which freezes you out. Well, the transderivational search means you kind of drop into a hypnotic state immediately and you start to try and process what this means. But because your emotions are blocked, because you've been blocking them, this is the 5th problem, because you've been blocking them since childhood, you can't come up with the meaning of what this is. Because you can't, your instinct and your intuition, you can't access, because all of the emotions are frozen. It's kind of like constipation. You know, it's blocked. You can't access it because the emotions are all frozen. So 22 minutes into this Google Hangout, how do we, I've stated what the problem is, and it's very, very common amongst my clients, and it's quite common amongst my friends. It's a common thing. The dangers of this are perpetual cycle of abusive relationships, potentially passing on abusive patterns of behavior to your children, because you will go unconscious and you're relating to your children. So you've got to be real careful of that. No ability to gain traction in your life. Health issues up the wazoo. If you were trained as childhood that you don't exist, you don't have the permission to exist, you're going to get autoimmune issues. You're going to get you're going to develop the inability, not all, but some people develop the inability to fight viruses, and they're constantly sick. Why? Well, excuse my slightly dumb non-medical analogy, but you are a kingdom. You're the kingdom, you're the castle, and your castle walls, all the soldiers are asleep. The soldiers are the lymphocytes. The soldiers are the parts of your body that are responsible for fighting foreign invaders. Well, you were trained since childhood not to fight. You were trained to submit. You're not even allowed to be inside your own body. And as Eckhart Tolle teaches us, healing can only take place when you're present in the here and now. Healing only ever happens here and now. So if I'm constantly out of my body, right there I am, out of body experience. If I'm constantly out of my body, how am I ever going to heal? How am I ever going to feel that anything is up, like a finger that I've got? How am I ever going to feel that if I'm always out? I can't. So you've got to get back in. So all of these things start to add up, and you find yourself getting physically and mentally sick and frustrated because you can't move forward. What are we going to do about this? You're going to do something that you don't want to do. Because if you wanted to do it, kid, you would have already done it, but you didn't. So we're going to do things that we've never done before, and it's a discipline. Oh, the other issue that you're going to get on the list that I just gave you is it's highly likely you'll have weight gain issues. At the other end of the spectrum, you have weight loss issues. You have people who just can't put any weight on, and they have no sense of how little they're eating every day. And then they're literally I don't want to overstep my boundaries and talk about a field of expertise that I'm not an expert in. But this was a theory that I had, and I've seen evidence. I've looked at the research that might be true. The highly anxious person who's jigging around all the time doing this, adrenaline and neuroepinephrine is flowing all the time. What does that suppress? It suppresses the hormones that make you feel hungry. The people who are very still all the time, who are not moving, it gets a little bit more complicated, but there are parts of your body that, shall we say, get cleansed through movement, that we're supposed to be moving. So that's what we've evolved to. We're supposed to be moving every day. And when you sit very still and all your emotions are suppressed and you don't move, there's a possibility that you're actually producing more hunger hormone. Let's just call it hunger hormone. We don't need to talk about ghrelin and leptin right now. Ghrelin it makes your stomach growl. Ghrelin, growling, stomach growling, hunger. If you're producing more of that, more hunger hormone, you're going to want to eat more. If you're highly adrenalized all the time and you're constantly looking for danger because you want to flight, and that means that you're slim. And what do you like to do at the gym? You like to do running. If you at the other end of the spectrum, what do you like to do? Either nothing or just weights like me, or you just want to stay and fight, so you want to punch things. So then you're actually going to start to produce even more of the hunger hormone, and you get stuck in this trap, you get stuck in this cycle. So let's deal with, first and foremost, how we're going to deal with this. We're going to do things that you don't want to do. The first thing that you're going to do that you don't want to do is you're going to have to commit to a discipline. You're going to have to commit to doing things on a daily basis that are not natural for you to do, that don't come out of your unconscious impulses. It's totally fresh. You're going to have to start reversing the bad hypnosis from childhood, the bad brainwashing from childhood, and you've got to give yourself new hypnosis and new brainwashing as an adult. I'm using the terms brainwashing and hypnosis very advisedly, because everybody in their mind understands that brainwashing requires repetition. Thank you. How often? One day? No, it needs to be on the daily, over and over and over and over and over again. New information, new ideas, new ways of relating. What's the thing that you're going to start doing over and over again? Well, you were trained in childhood to not feel feelings and to neglect yourself, to just have no self. So you're going to start bringing yourself in a very disciplined and kind and gentle and enjoyable way. And we're going to make this process fun. We're going to make it enjoyable. You're going to start focusing on your feelings. The most straightforward way of doing this that you can start doing now is you grab a pen, you grab a book, and you start journaling your feelings. And you say, okay, I went to see my friend the other day and it made me feel a thing. Now, at the moment, if you're at flat effect, if you have the CPTSD response, which suppresses all emotion and creates dissociation, you probably are functioning on a daily basis with about 3 emotions, and they will break down into sad, somewhat happy, angry, or bored, sad again, lonely, momentary happiness, and frustration. You know, it's broken down into these brutal, we have 3 bins, and there's just those 3 bins. That's all of our emotional content. That's all I need. I'm on rations. I'm on, like airdrop military ration packs of emotion. Yes, I'm experiencing emotion, but I'm experiencing it in an extremely brutal, highly oversimplified black and white way. Stay with me, because what I'm going to tell you now will change the quality of your consciousness. And this is how I've made so much progress in the last 6 months. The only time I ever had such a consciousness altering experience was by extremely dangerous levels of exposure to acid when I was a teenager, when in my desperation, in my CPTSD, depression and anxiety, I believed that if I took enough acid, I would achieve enlightenment and not experience all these horrible feelings anymore. You know how that one went. Didn't really work. Didn't work. It wasn't useless. It did provide me with the ability to think about ways and things that most people can't or don't seem to want to. Kind of 3-dimensional thinking. You'd rather than just look at what it seems to be on the face of it. The experience of taking acid, which I do not recommend, there are no drugs that I would recommend you taking, seems to give people more of an ability to look at what's behind, underneath, and how this thing was formed and where it came from, and is it even real in the first place. Acid tends to be a drug that focuses the mind on patterns, on time, and on reality. The nature of reality itself just tends to lead you in that direction. I don't know why it is. What I'm going to tell you now will have that kind of consciousness altering effect. I got the book, The Tao of Fully Feeling, on my smartphone, and I started reading it. The Tao, people are going to ask in the comments, The Tao of Fully Feeling. It is by Pete Walker. Pete as in Peter, Walker as in walking, as in there are some walkers over there. They're trying to get my stuff and my things. Where's Carl? Where's Carl? Walker, Pete Walker, that Pete Walker, okay? And the book is called The Tao of Fully Feeling. That is a Chinese word mispronounced horribly in English. It's Tao. It's not a great title, but it's a fantastic book. And all it does is encourage us to accept what we're feeling, and here's the thing you don't want to do, to grieve, to make friends with feeling sad. Sadness for the next 6 months of your life is a friend, not a foe, not something that you push to one side. If you're serious and you want to do this, you buy a journal, you buy some pens, you go read the poem by Khalil Gibran. Just Google Gibran, Gibran. The poem is called On Sadness. I'm saying it like this because not everybody has English as their first language, and I speak quickly with a bit of an accent. On sadness, and learn to appreciate the value of sadness and of grief. It will not destroy you. I'm going to give you a technique right now that's going to let you do two things. It's going to let you make friends with these scary things called emotions that you've been afraid of since childhood. And the second thing it's going to do is it's going to let you process them. In your journal, you're going to think about an experience that made you feel a thing recently. Maybe the first exercise we'll all do is you journal how you feel watching this Google Hangout. And you're going to write down, I watched the Google Hangout and it made me feel. And then you use words that are adjectives to describe in a nuanced way exactly what you feel, rather than just going frightened. You look at frightened and you sit with it and you go, but what is it? I'm frightened, kind of anxious. Actually, there's excitement there. I feel pretty good as well. I'm frightened. It's challenging. Frightened, anxious, challenging. I'm excited. There's a sense of trepidation there. Behind that, there's hope. I hope it works. But then I'm also behind that feeling of hope, I'm also frightened. You break it down. You could even do like spider diagrams. So you start with, what do you feel? Pissed off. So you put in a box, pissed off. And then you put the spider's legs out. Pissed off. In what way? I'm angry. I want to fight. I'm challenged and it's irritating. I'm irritated. You go through and you just expand what you feel. What are we doing when we do that? The two things. You're teaching your brain, you're teaching your unconscious that a raw emotion that is just fear or pissed off or whatever is frightening. But if you break it down into its component parts that formulate the emotion, you start to see all the different bits and pieces that are making the emotion. That's not scary. Anticipation that is tinged with a sprinkling of trepidation, that's not scary. I can deal with that. Chunk small. Yeah, that's one part of the emotion. And also, why am I feeling that? Well, maybe it's because I think that, like, for once in my life, I might actually learn something from a psychologist that works. That maybe this could be the thing, maybe this could work, but I'm scared because what if it's not? I've had my fingers burned so many times. I've been disappointed so many times. There's so many promises out there from cynical people who are just trying to make money from my suffering, that this other bit here is like, oh, maybe it won't work. And now I'm pissed off about. And this actually, what I'm describing, the spider diagram, is actually how neural networks are formed. This is how we feel and think about certain subjects. Break it down, make it conscious, make friends with it, and guess what else you're doing? You are now acknowledging the feeling fully. And in acknowledging your emotions, you're acknowledging that you have needs, that you are a person, that you are present, that you are real, that you are here, and that it's okay for you to feel this way. That it is okay. It's not that big a deal, and everybody feels feelings. You do this once, it's going to be a good experience, and something you can tell your mate about when you go and have a cup of coffee. You do this every day for months at a time, it will change the quality of your consciousness. Why? As you start to experience these feelings, as you start to write them down and describe them back to yourself, you will see that your ability to think clears. Your ability to process emotions and relationships gets clearer. Try this and tell me I'm wrong. Try this and do it with sincerity and patience, and let yourself feel any anger that comes up. Let yourself feel any sadness that comes up, and don't run from it. Sit with it and go, I'm sad. I'm sad and it's okay. I'm sad and I'm grieving. I'm sad and I'm grieving for all the years lost, for the childhood I wasn't permitted, for the fact that I didn't have parents. I had a sperm donor and an egg donor, and they supplied me with enough food for me to not die of starvation, but that's kind of it. The sadness, the intense sadness for the loss, and be okay with it, be cool with it. What will start to happen is it actually starts to affect the way you think. You can think more clearly, you can see more clearly. All of that traction that you're telling yourself you can't get in your life, suddenly you can get traction. Suddenly you're just getting shit done thoughtlessly with no effort. It's just happening. You just start to get things done. So that's very, very important. On the daily, the journaling of emotions and actually breaking it down. If you're a right brain thinker and you like spider diagrams, then get, this really hurts now. I'm feeling my feelings now, and start to break it down. Use different colored pens. That's all good. It's going to allow you to access the inner child. It's going to be a very, very soothing experience. You'll see it's not frightening. It's not scary at all. You just draw it. You just go, how do I feel? I am frustrated. I am feeling sad. I feel depressed. How? Depressed how? Depressed, sad, unmotivated, low energy, there's anger here, blah, 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 blah. And all of these things, when you start to acknowledge them, it's not frightening anymore, and they start to clear. This is how we're going to learn to process emotions. Depression, as it goes, is very often a case of suppressing other emotions, like anger. Suppress the anger, don't let that feeling, suppress it, feel depressed. What's the next thing that happens? Sex drive goes down, lust for life goes down, your capacity to enjoy things goes down. Why? Well, you told them, you sent a message to the system, like you sent a message to the soldiers within the system going, don't feel anything. Are you sure? You just don't feel anything. I don't want to feel. You sure you don't want to? Yep, don't want to feel. Fine. They'll just do it. They'll just go, yeah, fine. The onboard computer does it for you and goes, fine, you're not going to feel feelings. And then you go to your doctor and you go, I feel depressed. Now I need drugs. And that's going to make me feel better, isn't it? That's why antidepressants work so well, and why everybody's cured of depression. There's loads of people out there who are like, antidepressants cured my depression. I'm joking. It's not true. It's a lie. They're lying to us. So that's what I want you to do. You come back to yourself. You acknowledge you have needs. You acknowledge these feelings, and you start to process them over time. It's a very, very simple technique I've given you. All the best techniques are simple. The thing that's going to make this work is your commitment to it and your repetition over time. Keep doing it. Do it and do it and do it. Write it down so you can externalize it and look at it and go, holy shit, I didn't know I felt this, this, and this about that. Why? What about that situation is making me feel this? Then you have your own onboard psychologist that's going, well, isn't what that girl is doing over there, doesn't that look a little bit like that situation we had at school with the thing that was upsetting, and there's this big block of emotion around that? And you go, what thing at the school? Oh shit, yeah, that happened. Let's look at how I feel about the thing that happened in my past that relates to this thing that's in my present. What's that made up of? It's made up of a big fat fucking clump of unprocessed emotion. What happened there? I was abandoned, I was bullied, I was betrayed, I was and how does that make you feel now? Well, how that makes me feel now as an adult is I feel sad that that happened. I feel angry that that happened, and adults in the environment knew about it and didn't do anything about it, and so on and so on. Explore, investigate, become, Sherlock Holmes to your own emotional landscape and find out what's going on there. All of this stuff will help, and it gives you the mental space to start to be able to set goals and achieve them. I think a lot of people who self-sabotage, who can't get traction, a lot of the time it's emotional blockage. I have a friend of mine, I've known her since childhood, a very dear friend of mine, who can't get her shit together. Everything is chaotic. And everything is I was joking with her. I was like, I'm going to start calling you two-step, because everything in your life is 2 steps from catastrophe all the time. And you're living your life, she's the same age as me, she's nearly 40. You're living your life in this emergency state, going from one crazy, wild, bohemian, artistic situation to the next, and kind of getting a buzz from that. but then also feeling a compulsion to be on it all the time and, you know, be doing that all the time. And what have you got at the end? How's your bank account looking? Where are you living? What's your life like? You can't reduce everything to a bank account, but we've got to get past this Illuminati conspiracy gibberish that we've been fed, that the meek shall inherit the earth, and there's something valuable in being poor. There isn't. There isn't anything valuable in unconsciously being poor. Having no money is demeaning. Having no money is humiliating. Having no money is painful. It's not like you get a load of money and it's like buying instant happiness. It's not. As Richard Bandler once said, if you can't enjoy $1, you're not going to enjoy $10 million. Like, if you're miserable, you're miserable. But the idea that having no money is a crappy one. And, you know, there are different cultures that try and explain it away. And basically, it's a lie that rich people tell poor people to stop them from rioting. Having more money makes life easier. I just watched the film I, Daniel Blake recently. Let me slow down. The film is called I, Daniel Blake. It's by Ken Loach. Highly recommend it. It's like that's a Zen master at work right there. It's a very simple, very stripped film, but it penetrates right to the core. It's like a Zen arrow through its target. And that's an old Zen master who's been perfecting his art his entire life. You ever hear that Zen story where they said the dude, the Japanese nobleman, comes to the Zen master and says, I want I'm going to give you a year, and I want you to make me the most perfect drawing of a cat that anybody's ever done. The most beautiful drawing of a cat. I'm giving you a year, so this had better be good. Is it going to be good? And the Zen master's like, fine. So the guy pisses off, comes back in a year, and he says, where's my drawing? And the Zen master pulls out a blank sheet, and he gets his paints ready. And the guy's like, I gave you a year. You haven't even started. And the Zen master's like, shh, shush times for you, son, shush. And he gets his brush out and he draws the most beautiful, in one go, the most beautiful, awe-inspiring, moving drawing of a cat that anybody has ever seen in the history of cat drawings. And he hands it over. He goes, there you go. And the nobleman goes, that's awesome. Thank you very much for that. Can I just ask you what's inside of that cupboard? And the Zen master opens the cupboard, and all the drawings that he had tried for the last 365 days of rehearsal fell out. There is this tradition there in the Eastern spiritual schools that things take time. You'll have also heard it's been attributed to Zen, and it's been attributed to Indian meditation as well. The student comes and says, I want enlightenment. How long will it take me? And the master says it's going to take 10 years of meditation. And the student says, I want it quicker than that. What's the quickest you can do it? The Zen master says, you want it quicker than that? He says, yeah, I'm in a rush. And he says, okay, 30 years. The faster you try and get it, and the less patient you are, the longer it's going to take. So you just commit to the work, just do the work, just keep drawing the Zen drawing of a cat on the daily basis. It's going to work for you. You're going to get there with it. Now, the other thing that starts to happen, apart from the fact that you increase your ability to set goals, because you're feeling better about yourself, because you're not emotionally constipated and suppressed and numbed out all the time, you start to feel this new thing called inspiration, called enthusiasm, called joy, called energy, that's going to make you feel good and make you want to do things that previously you just couldn't do. You know, sometimes you don't even want to leave the house. You don't even want to go to the shops because you're so overwhelmed. With this emotional processing technique, you're going to have new energy to do new things. The other thing you're going to be able to do is it's going to be easier to control your addictions. It's going to be easier for you to reduce the compulsive, impulsive patterns of behavior that you previously had that was causing all the chaos in your life. You're going to be able to be calmer and just look and go, you know what? I've always wanted to do that. I'm going to do that now. I'm going to actually make that happen and go and do that thing. The other myth that I've heard a lot of recently that is really not helpful, apart from having no money is cool or having no money is spiritual or a good thing in and of itself. But having no money is not the same thing as renouncing worldly goods. It's not the same thing as taking to the streets as a stoic, as a cynic, as the old Greek philosophers would, or as the Indian gurus do. That's not the same. That's fake. That's not the same thing. The other thing that I hear a lot of is people saying being fat is okay. Being completely overweight is okay. It's not okay. You know, I struggled with weight since the age of 21 when I, basically I shifted from one addiction to another. And I was like, well, food's legal and it's completely socially acceptable and people are trying to give it to me all the time, so fuck it. So consequently, since then, my weight has gone up and down dramatically quite a lot. There is this myth out there that people are saying it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. It's not. 3 of my friends, one of whom I'm in an office right now, one of whom died in an office up the road from here. I'm pointing the wrong way. Down the road from here at the age of 33. He died 5 years younger than I am now from the side effects of Crohn's disease. I had another friend who died at the age of 34. He had a 1-year-old daughter as a side effect of a really, really bad diet. And he ended up getting an extremely rare form of cancer of the bowel that then became cancer of the fat cells, which is an extremely rare form of cancer. Another mate of mine died because he was a bodybuilder and he wanted to get bigger and bigger, and he took loads of steroids, and then he got into this thing where he would take insulin, he would experience a huge sugar drop, and him and his steroid abusing mates would go to the Chinese all-you-can-eat buffet and stuff their faces with food. Why? On the logic that more calories equals more muscle. Completely crazy. And eventually one day he just slipped into a coma and died. It's not good to fuck around with your digestive system. It's not good to be fat. People who are fatter, especially people who are carrying more visceral fat, are not just at a higher risk for heart disease, you know, they're a higher risk for cancer as well. There's all kinds of negative side effects from carrying too much fat. This isn't a fat shaming exercise, by the way. This is just to say we've got to stop bullshitting ourselves. We've got to start looking at the truth. Look at what happens when we bullshit ourselves. Look at where the world is now. Look at what just happened in 2016. You want to know why I blame for that? The fact that we live and feed off bullshit, and everybody's scared of telling the truth now. Everybody is frightened of telling the truth. And that's why we're looking at the reality that we're looking at today. A reality that, you know, you wake up on a daily basis going, did that happen or was that a bad dream? No, still happening, still real. Okay, fine. Because of bullshit, because we are frightened of telling the truth. And I think at a global cultural level, people are stuck in trauma. They're stuck in not being able to process emotions, and they're trying to word fix reality. They're trying to make it so that if you say the right words and if you ban certain words, everything's going to be okay. No, it fucking isn't, because reality doesn't care about words. Only humans care about words, which is just a little, they're like carriers for a symbol that represents a map of reality. That's all they are. They can never be more than that. That's why it's so weak to try and use word fixes for real world problems. So one of the things that I've found in the last sort of 20 years of all the addictions that I had that I used to try and cope with CPTSD, food was the worst, because I think it's because you have to eat. You know, I kicked cocaine it took me a week. I was just like, I'm just not doing that anymore. That's it. It's done. I kicked smoking that took a little longer. It took about a month to quit smoking, but nobody has to have like a little pinch of cocaine every day. But only a small amount, and it has to be, you know, in a sensible environment. Whereas with food, you still got to eat 3 times a day, and it's plentiful and it's cheap. Most of us in the Western world, fuck the Western world, even the Eastern world, you go to Asia, it's the same thing. The food is cheap, and the worst food is readily available everywhere. Imagine if that was Coke and you were a cokehead. Imagine if, like, you go to your grandma's house and she's like, I want you to eat, you look thin, come on, eat some biscuits and some cake and stuff. Imagine if that was cocaine. She's like, have a lime, come on. You'd struggle, right? So with food, I find it's the same thing. It's a struggle. And consequently, if you look through my YouTube videos, you'll see I kind of go up and down a little bit. You know, I put on a lot of weight very, very quickly. I can usually lose it quite quickly as well, because I'm used to being in a diet. So I go, oh, I'm up, and then I'm down again. But that's not good. That's not healthy. Up and down on your weight is probably getting on for being as unhealthy as just being fat, as just being overweight all the time. So what I'm proposing, what I've done, there's a mate of mine who's a personal trainer, and he does, it's really clever, he does his personal training through an app. That means that people, wherever they are, all over the world, can get access to his training. He does complete nutrition plans and exercise plans, and you can talk to him 24/7 through this app. So what I thought is, okay, I'm going to jump on that, and I'm going to give myself 3 months. I'm going to set a 90-day challenge. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to open it up to other people who, like me, are, you know, sick of being overweight all the time. Or in my case, it's not that I'm overweight all the time, so that I do this. So inside of 1 year, I can fluctuate by 5 or 6 kilos, not 4 or 5, maybe 4 times in the year. That's not healthy. That's not a pattern I want to set up for the rest of my life. So if you are interested in doing that with me, I'm going to let 15 people join up with me. We're going to have a closed group on Facebook, and we're going to do this 90-day challenge together. We're going to express to each other what the goal is. This is not like some crazy, let's see who can lose the most weight fastest thing. It's going to be based on following a structured exercise plan. How bad are we with CPTSD at following a structured exercise plan? At following a food protocol. So you are going to need to download MyFitnessPal and track everything that you're eating as well. Every exercise routine that you do, every fluctuation in weight that you have, every calorie that you're eating, Danny, the personal trainer and nutritionist, will be able to see that through the smartphone. And if you choose it, the 15 of us will I'll share my information with everybody so that I have complete transparency and accountability. This has worked for me in the past on other goals where you're accountable to each other, you basically support each other, and you move forward trying to help each other out. The thing that scares me about this, right? I can do anything for 2 weeks. The most extreme, craziest thing, I would beat all of you hands down if it's 2 weeks. 3 months though, 90 days, that frightens me. So this is a goal that I'm setting it publicly. The way that we will decide, so it's going to be competitive. There's going to be 15 of us doing it. Danny, the personal trainer, who's watching how well we're following our exercise schedule, how well the weight gain and weight loss is going, and what we're eating, he's going to decide who tracked their calories the best, who did the most the exercise routines most consistently. It's going to be about consistency and who achieved their weight loss goals the best. This is not about, you know, embracing extreme diets or anything like that. This is about being really healthy and doing something that's kind of fun at the same time for 90 days. If you want to join up with me on that, I will put the link to do that down below. Danny's given us a half price special offer on that, which is really, really cool. Once you've joined up with it, we're all going to go to this closed Facebook group. We're going to introduce us. I'm not a coach in that. I'm a student in that. So I'm just going to be right there alongside you, sweating and panicking over the fact I can't eat cakes every day. So that it's a support group. Danny's the person who's going to be in charge of it. I'll give you support psychologically if you need it, but as far as the diet and exercise goes, that's all down to him. It's only going to be open to 15 people, and you have to join before the 6th of December. The reason for that is it's a happy coincidence that the 6th of December to the 6th of March is exactly 90 days. You've got to have joined by the 6th of December. We have to have all enrolled, and we have to have all stated what our fitness goals are to him, had a consultation with him, because as soon as you join with him, you're going to be signed up for a half-hour long Skype chat with him. So you're going to, and you also, when you join up with him, not only will he answer your question, you speak to him through the app, or it's like Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. Any questions you have, any exercises you don't like, any blah, blah, whatever it is, you speak to him. I say 24/7. The dude's got to sleep 6 hours a night too, right? So, you know, it's when he wakes up, whatever time zone you're in, the longest you should be waiting for an answer is like 6 or 7 hours. And also you get in Skype sessions every week. So if there's something you don't understand or you've got questions about, you can actually go to one source who's a guy, he's competed as a bodybuilder. He knows exactly what he's, not that we want to be bodybuilders, that's not what I'm saying, but he knows what he's talking about when it comes to body recomposition. This is a body recomposition exercise. The people who do this, you probably should be looking like me to just burn fat and not lose strength and not lose any sort of mobility or anything like that. If you fancy doing that, I'll put the link below. The only stipulation is you have to join by the 6th of December. You have to have had your consultation with him, and you need to have stated in our closed group, we're all going to share what our fitness goals are. And at that point, you're going to find out what my current weight is and my waist measurements. Oh my God, it's not good. It's not good. Hey, I have a high stress lifestyle, okay? Don't judge me, man. A lot of cortisol bouncing around here. Okay, so that will give us an opportunity to set New Year's resolutions 1 month early and to just crack on and get on with it. As far as that goes, by the way, any New Year's resolutions that you guys are thinking of looking at, whether it's in terms of making more money, advancing in your career, you know, diet and exercise resolutions, relationship resolutions, Start working on that now. Do it the month before everybody else does it. And don't share it with anyone just yet. Don't share it with anyone just yet, but start it now. At the beginning of January, I'm going to create another closed Facebook group that is also going to be a support group for all other kinds of goals. Again, it's the same thing. It's support, it's accountability, it's the capacity to get resources and help from other people. But start doing it now. The key to doing this, though, is when you're going to start working on New Year's resolutions, setting goals for 2017, and God knows we need to. All of us need to stop, dwelling on what's just happened and get back to work. And whatever it is, like, there's nobody else, nobody's coming to save us unless the Palladians eventually come through. So we have to sort ourselves out. So we've got to be setting goals, and we need to challenge ourselves, and we need to move forward. I don't want you at the end of 2017 to still be worrying about CPTSD and the same old emotional dysregulation issues that you've been suffering with for years. There's no need for it. We have the solutions, we have the technology. Let's get on with it. And having got on with it, let's then expand outward from surviving to thriving to actually giving, to helping other people. We should all be seeking throughout 2017 to move past ourselves and our own problems to helping other people, because that's kind of what is needed right now. When you're setting those goals, as you're setting those goals and those objectives and deciding what your New Year's resolutions are going to be, I want you to be constantly processing your emotions around those goals. So as you look and you say you want to make more money. In 2017, I'd like to make more money. How do I feel about making more money? What are my, and use adjectives that describe emotion. So when you journal, how do I feel about making more money? The next line in your journal must not be, I think that people should, blah, blah, blah. That's philosophizing, that's intellectualizing, and it's a cunning technique of dissociation coming in via the side door. You must write only in adjectives that describe emotion, exactly how you feel about all of these resolutions. And you're going to be scared. That's how I feel right now about doing this 90-day challenge. I'm scared because based on my history, there's a very, very good chance that I'm going to really struggle to maintain this. And it's going to be hard for me. Of course, if I'm doing it in front of other people, I kind of have to, because, I can't fail in front of people. That's bad. So that's how I can leverage myself during this whole process. And that's what I'm hoping is going to leverage other people, leverage you to work alongside me with it. And the fact that you're accountable to other people and other people are like, hang on a second, you need to sort yourself out there, mate, get back in line. That's going to work really, really well. This is the kind of thing as well that 2017 should have more of. We need to be connecting more. Connect with other people. Connect with other people who have similar objectives and similar values to you, and work with them. It's going to make a huge difference. I really believe that. Okay, guys, that's the end of this Google Hangout. Oh, I didn't answer any questions. That's just rude. I'm just ignoring people. Let's have a little look. I'll do this real quick. Sally says, I've lost my mojo. I really want to find it. Linda says, we won't love you if you fail. Haha. I know, right? And I won't love me either. That's the sad thing. Rosie says, thank you so much for this. This hangout's come at exactly the right time for me and the stage of recovery I'm at now. Awesome. Jana says, I feel enthused. Thank you. Super Babe says, hi, Sparty. I hope that nickname doesn't catch on. Hi, Sparty. Okay, let's see if there's any questions here. No questions. It's really weird. When it was in Google Hangouts and it was called question and answer, people would write questions. But since it's called chat in YouTube because they changed it, people stop asking questions. Okay. Somebody says, I've been hooked on the hardest opiates and quit cold turkey. Yeah, it's interesting the research that's there on quitting opiates versus the narrative we have about how hard it is. It's something I'll go into on another video, I think, and the impact of self-isolation and loneliness on drug addiction, and how making it illegal actually increases the self-isolation and the loneliness, which then it actually increases the tendency to use drugs. Let's see if I can find a question. Beep, beep, beep. Somebody says sugar is the worst. Oh, no. There is just literally no questions here. Oh, somebody says, how do I sign up for the challenge? Okay, I'm going to put it in the chat bar now. The link, oops, that's the wrong link. That's a link to Google Hangout, which you're already on. That's a bit redundant. You can sign up to the challenge by, okay, so it's in the chat box. And after the Google Hangout is finished, I can start to make changes in the YouTube video. I'll put a link in the more information section right underneath the video that will allow you to sign up. Melody asks, why can't you remember dissociation? It makes me dissociate that you would even ask that. L asks, what is your opinion of EMDR and helping to release emotions? My opinion of EMDR, like most of the modalities I've had described to me, but that I'm not qualified in and I've never used, is it should work. By my understanding of everything that I know about therapy and about the way PTSD works, EMDR should work. When it doesn't work, I suspect the therapist might be crap, the client might just be being a dick, or both of them are acting up and they've broken rapport somehow and they're just not playing along. I do think that EMDR for people with certain issues, like if they've developed from PTSD into full-blown borderline personality disorder, it's going to be hard to get them to submit to the process of EMDR. And some therapists and coaches and counselors might not be hip to that. They might not be wise to that. So yeah, EMDR should work very, very well. I've never had it myself, but somebody very close to me had it, and she said it was brilliant. She said it worked really, really well. But she had a lot of respect for the therapist and trusted. And you know, at some point, you kind of have to submit to the process and let the person who's trying to fix you help you out. So yeah, it should work. Lily asks, are there any copies of your book available? My book's available on Amazon all the time. It's electronic, so there's no copies. It's there forever. Michelle says, I've seen a vast reduction in the PTSD and triggers. Maybe she's talking about EMDR. Okay, there's not many. Oh, here we go. What's EMDR? Oh, dude, Google, come on. Open another tab, put into Google, what's EMDR? What do you think of schizoids? I think they should be left alone. Haha, psychology jokes. Do you think we are truly void of emotion? No, I think that the diagnosis of schizoid personality disorder, like a lot of diagnoses, is kind of a projection. It's like a function of projection. We go, this is the toolkit we have. I'm the diagnostician. This is the toolkit I have. This is the map of reality I have. These are the symptoms you're presenting with. You're schizoid. I don't, you know, I'm very much, and I'm very open about it and very loud advocate of the Pete Walker CPTSD model. And I've had great progress with clients and great progress even with clients I've dealt with indirectly through books and videos, just focusing on the CPTSD model. And so I would look and say, okay, if I have a client who tells me they've been diagnosed as schizoid, I would be looking for what the CPTSD factors are to that and dealing with the CPTSD and the emotional flashbacks in order to heal what is presenting itself there. So what do I think of schizoids? Do I truly think they're devoid of emotion? I doubt it. I doubt that schizoids are devoid of emotion. I doubt that anybody is completely devoid of emotion. However, that emotion could go into possibly, I don't know, permanent hibernation, depending on how much trauma is being experienced. Certainly, many of us are in a state of semi-hibernation with probably 80 to 90% of our emotional experience that gives us a very poor, as in poverty poor, as in paucity, experience of nuanced emotion, which means you're vulnerable to abusive people. Your capacity to express yourself is weak. You will have limited internal boundaries and limited external boundaries as well. I think exercise triggers my dissociate on and your paranoia. Any advice? It depends on where you're exercising and how. You might want to look at what the potential triggers are. For some people, just walking into a gym would be a trigger. I know that when I suffered a lot with social anxiety, going into a gym was not something that I would do. So I had to look at other options, training from home or training in smaller gyms or finding a different way of training altogether. Okay, that's it for this session. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you have any questions, I think you're going to be able to post them under the YouTube video after we've stopped broadcasting. As ever, thank you very much for your time and your attention, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you.